We're live, Charlie. We're live. By technological brilliance and a miracle, we are live, myself and Charlie, to give you the preview of West Ham United's long trip away to Newcastle on Saturday. I say long trip, I'm not making it at all myself, so it's probably not long for me. I just sort of got to walk from the sofa and stuff like that. But for those of you who are making that long trek, fair play. I'm joined by the bearded beauty, Charlie himself. Hello, my friend.
Hey, all right, how are you?
I'm all right. I'm all right, mate. Not too bad at all. Gio is not with us this evening. He's very excited. He'll be back probably for a Premier League preview tomorrow, and certainly back to review the game on Saturday. But as I'm sure you all know, the Spice Girls tickets have gone on general release. Well, they go on general release 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. He can't contain himself. He's queued up. He's got his deck chair. He's got his flask of tea and a bottle of iron brew, and he just cannot contain himself. But anyway, on to bigger and better things, because we face Newcastle on Saturday, as I said, and Newcastle United are targeting a 4th straight win, while us, West Ham, are seeking to bounce back after defeat to Manchester City. And Arnautovic is fit after limping off last week. Jack Wilshere and Andy Carroll have recovered from ankle injuries, and they're possibly set to feature. Lanzini, Sanchez, Fredericks remain out with long-term injuries. Now, Newcastle have won their last 3 Premier League matches against West Ham, and can equal a 4-match run that they achieved between September 1993 and March 1995. Did you know that, Charlie?
Sure, yeah, why not? I definitely knew that. I knew all of what you just said. Definitely not Googled. Yeah, no, I know it.
Listen, the other thing I know without using Google is that Rafa Benitez has won 6 of his 7 Premier League matches against West Ham and drawing the other one. Now, that's significant because, let's be fair, Rafa Benitez was the chosen one. He was the one that West Ham United wanted. Pellegrini wasn't a first choice, was he? But I think probably when Rafa Benitez saw David Sullivan's picture pop up on Tinder, he swiped left or whatever. Which way is it, Charlie, to reject?
I don't know. I use Tinder less than you do. I don't know.
I'm sure you do. It's the other one you want to worry about. Anyway, you tell me what you know about Newcastle, and anything positive to say about them before we say something nasty.
I think there's a lot of good things to say about them, and I think there's a lot of good things to say about Rafa Benitez specifically. I think he's up there with some of the best managers in the league. He's not Pep Guardiola level by any stretch of the imagination, but he has an ability to drag more out of players than he should be able to. You look at Newcastle's squad, and by and large, it's mostly a championship team. They do have some very good players. They have some outstanding players, but it is a lot of players in there. You think, oh, okay, they're probably a lower table or championship level players, and yet he can drag more out of them. And the way he coaches, although there is obviously criticism about his defensive stance and his defensive football, and that's totally fair, but he rotates the squad, and yet people all know their roles. I think he's an amazing coach, and I think they have enough quality in key areas to actually do damage to a lot of teams on their day. And I think that although they're probably candidates until they start spending due to their horrendous owner, which I'm sure we can all agree with, they're a good team, and I think they're not something to be taken lightly.
Well, you said a horrendous owner, and of course you're alluding to Mike Ashley. So if you look at the start of the season, obviously there was little or no investment. I think they brought Kennedy in, didn't they? They brought Rondon, obviously, who started to score some goals. And you sort of thought that was a club in crisis. In many people's predictions, and we do lots of predictions on Hammers Chat, Newcastle were tipped to go down. And I think you couldn't really argue with it. Ashley had not supported his manager. Ashley had openly put the club on the market. It's there for sale if anybody wants it. That's got 250 million or whatever the asking price is. And it just looked like there was a detachment, as always, between the owner and the fans. And they got off to a horrendous start. And you look at it, but actually looking at West Ham, we're even Stevens at the moment, Charlie.
Yeah, you could argue they were a club in crisis until like 3 games ago, when all of a sudden they start winning. And I think, again, that's a huge credit to Rafa Benitez, the fact that he is able to turn that around and is able to make them solid enough to start winning games against teams they need to be winning against. Because, you know, as Gio always says, as if he was here, you know, when you face Man City, it's bonus points. You're not looking for the points in those games. You're looking for the points in the other games. And they've pulled out the results 3 games in a row against teams they want to be pulling out results against. And when you look at us, we've done the exact opposite. We've put in performances to get points and have come away with none several times now. We've come away with 1 point, but maybe we should come away with 3. And I think it's the exact opposite. I think they deserve to be the place they're in. And again, he gets no investment, and yet look what he drags out of that team. Look what he drags out of those players. Obviously, the championship season, he got a lot of money, but he built a championship team, and they're still riding high with a team like us who have spent a lot of money.
Yeah, just typical of West Ham's luck, I think, Charlie. As everybody will be thinking, this is points in the bag. We've done our hard run. We've played Man City and Chelsea and Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool, and you just think, okay, well, this is good. We get to play the club in crisis at this point, and just as we're about to play them, they pick up form. You mentioned key players. Obviously, one of them actually has that name, but who do you think is looking dangerous? Who should we be worried about? Obviously, did you see the fella that missed the open goal? Is it Ritchie?
Yeah, Matt Ritchie.
Yeah, obviously we don't be worried about him, but anyone apart from him that we should be concerned about?
I mean, to be fair to him, he's a very good player, and we all have our off days. You know, I'm a great striker, but occasionally I'll miss. Do you know what I mean? Despite how great I am, I might miss a shot every now and then. But yeah, I think Solomon Rondon is I really like Solomon Rondon. He's big, he's powerful, he's deceptively fast for his size. He's got good finishing, he's got great heading, and I think he's the sort of guy who could cause us massive trouble, because if we're as weak down the fullback areas as we have been in recent weeks and in recent games, they could put a ball in, and all of a sudden Solomon Rondon's there. We play a high line, that guy's quick enough to get in round the back and good enough in the air to put power on it and get it past the goalkeeper. I think he's someone who is It's surprising to me that they let go of Mitrovic, given the fact that he's just looks a bit Solomon Rondon-ish anyway. But Rondon is that good, and I think I would love a guy like Rondon at West Ham. I know we kind of have Andy Carroll 5 games a year, but I think he's a great player. You want to see other people as well. They've got Jose Paris, I like as well, actually, to be fair. I think he plays sort of 10-second striker role, but he's someone who's a bit Dwight Gailey in that he's got that pace to get him around the back and has a bit of tricks and control. And I think, again, it's the players in key roles, like Ritchie, and they have pace down each flank, pace down each flank as well. And I think that they have the key players in the positions to damage us. You know what I mean? So I think that's the key thing with Newcastle, is they might not be a great team, but if those players play well, they're gonna, destroy us, as it were.
That is fantastic. They got pace down each wank. That's lovely. Oh, dearie me. Excuse me. That's made my night. What was it? I had something all lined up to say then. It was going to sound all brilliant. What was it? West Ham will be aiming to improve their defensive record, having kept just 1 clean sheet this season, believe it or not. Only Fulham have kept fewer. With that in mind, Charlie, and keep it clean, let's just talk about the flanks here. What changes are you making to the team, mate?
As few as humanly possible. I've said it before, but I think we really need to keep a solid base of the same players playing the same sort of systems and really get that flow together, because I think there are a core group of players, and unfortunately there are some key people out, Lanzini, Wilshere, people like that, who would be in and around that first team. But I think it's key that we keep that consistency. I think the person who threw it in the works for me most is Antonio. I think he played really well in the last game. It's probably the best game I think he's played in a long time for us. Whether that's enough to start ahead of someone like Dion, I don't know. But I think he played well, and I think he deserves to be in the shout, especially if Arnautovic doesn't start. Then I think we could even look at starting someone like Antonio up front just for that presence. But for me, I think you keep it basically the same as it was pre-City. I think I'd bring Snodgrass back in because I think he deserves it. And I think actually against a team who can sit deep like Newcastle, having a player of Snodgrass's ability with his key strengths in that deeper position would be very, very important. So,
okay, right. I mean, you made lots of good points there. Obviously, Masuaku was hauled off at half-time. At his bottom smack, he was a very, very naughty boy. Would you be keeping Masuaku or putting Cresswell in there?
I like Masuaku, but he just can't defend for the life of him. And again, like I say, they've got strength down the wings, and so it's got to be Cresswell. I think there's no other option at this point, unfortunately.
Sure. So you more or less you keep the same. You wouldn't bring Wilshere in or Snodgrass in for Obiang or anything?
No, I think it's too early for Wilshere. Snodgrass would bring in for. No, again, I think we've got to keep that consistency. And at this point in his career, I don't think Noble is a first choice starter every single game. I love him to pieces, and I want him to stay at the club for a very, very long time to come. But I don't think he's the first starter every game, and I think we were playing very, very well. So for me, it would be a 3 of Rice, Obiang, and Snodgrass.
Okay, fair enough. So he's playing there, and I take it you're thinking Antonio and Anderson on either wank. You think?
I'd start. Yeah, again, I think Anderson. I think Antonio, depending on what happens with Arnautovic, basically. But I think Diangana doesn't deserve to be dropped. I just think Antonio played very well. So again, that's very heavily dependent on what Arnautovic does. If he's fit, then I'm playing Diangana, Anderson, and then Arnautovic up front. If he's not, then I might consider putting Antonio in up front.
Yeah, I mean, just before I'm gonna give you my opinion on it, and I am obviously we're gonna sort of start getting towards our predictions and how confident or unconfident we might be in the general chat, which I'm just gonna flick to in a moment. Hello, everybody that's joining us, by the way. I'd like to finish up the show with your predictions, please. So start getting them in. Don't just say 1-0, 2-1. Give it some context, please, so I know whether you think we're going to win, lose, or whatever. If you say win, I'll take it as a West Ham win rather than a Newcastle one. But very interesting. I'll read those out in about 5 minutes' time. Charlie, now it's been a weird one for me, actually. I thought we weren't horrendous against Manchester City. I thought there were times that maybe we might have scored. I thought the times it fell to Antonio, obviously hit the post and whatnot. On a different day, we might have scored a couple of goals. I don't think we ever would have beaten Man City, but we did attack. I thought there were periods when Anderson didn't look too bad as well. So I think we are probably going to go up there and probably going to have a go. But by the same token, the moment I start to get a little bit confident, I start to look at the run that Newcastle are on. I start to look at what a far away trip it is, how much they put the away fans up in the gods, so to speak, and I sort of lose confidence. Have you got any confidence about this game at all, or are you feeling the same?
Very similar. I think our performances deserve more than they've had, and I think that's a very good sign going forward, and it gives me more confidence going up against a team who will be difficult to break down and will be difficult to beat, like Newcastle, because I feel like we should be able to do something. But again, we find it very difficult to break down teams who don't come at us. We seem to do better against teams who are free-flowing, attack us, really go at us, than we do against a team like Newcastle who won't do that. They're not going to come at us full guns blazing. They might come out early from the gates, but they're not going to play this amazing attacking football. It will be very much Leicester-style swashbuckling counter-attack. And so that's where my main concern comes in, is can we break that team down enough? Because I think Newcastle are good to get a goal or two, probably one, but are we good enough to break them down, especially if Arnautovic is injured? And that's a big, big worry for me.
Well, if you'd listened to my fantastic intro at the start, Charlie, you'd know that Arnautovic is not injured. Arnautovic is fit, ready, and raring to go. So I expect him to start, unless my in the know information, which I googled earlier, is incorrect. But I think he's ready to go, and I think we can score. I think we can score against almost any team. But the stat was what I read out earlier. We've only kept one clean sheet. And I was chatting with Gio last night before last, or something like that. And we were discussing about, what videos were coming up and what to do and what to put on the website. I said it's a bit dead at the moment. West Ham news, it's Declan Rice and it's Arnautovic and his brother, which seems to be dominating. And Gio said a very interesting thing to me, which was that we'd only won 3 games to 13, which I'd not really taken into account. And he said he felt that because it was Pellegrini and people feel that Pellegrini's got a plan and he's introducing young players and whatnot, he's getting a bit of time. But he said if we'd have only got 3 wins out of 13 under David Moyes, it would have been a lot more vociferous. So I think this one is a hard one to read. And as I say, every time I start to get confident, I seem to lose it. But I do think we can attack, and I do think Pellegrini attacks. I do think he has a go. But how good are we defensively? I guess that's answered by how good are Newcastle offensively, and I don't think they're great. I heard what you said about Rondon. I think I like Perez too. I think key is keeping what's his name, John Joe Shelvey out of the team, who's a very, very good player and an attacking player for them. I'd like to think with Balbuena and with Diop at the back, we've got enough. We've got enough to deal with what they throw at us offensively. And then I change and lose all my confidence. So, with that in mind, Charlie, mate, what's your prediction, please?
I don't think we're good enough defensively down the wing specifically to stop them. I think they will get a goal. I think it'll probably end up being a mildly disappointing 1-1 draw. But hopefully I think we can put in a good enough performance. And again, they don't keep the possession as much as we do, and I think that's a good sign for us trying to get that game going forward. So hopefully that works out well. But I do think it will probably be 1-1.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what Pellegrini does with his subs as well. He's going to have a strong bench, a very strong bench, actually. Be interesting to see if Wilshere features. Be interesting to see if Andy Carroll features. You know, that's traditionally somebody that under other managers they would have brought off the bench if we were struggling. Will Pellegrini do it? I mean, he didn't seem to show that he wanted to at the weekend, and he wasn't shy. I mean, Dan Garner come off very quickly. He wasn't shy in taking Masuaku off either. I mean, Andy, I don't know. Look, I'm going to get my Christmas tree on Sunday. I mean, will Andy Carroll be around as long as my Christmas tree? You know, he might. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm being serious. He might. Once the Christmas tree come down, whatever, you know, before New Year or whenever it is, we've only got a small window of opportunity where Andy Carroll can be used, I would imagine. So that's going to be very interesting. But I do think we've got enough in our locker. And I'll be honest, sometimes I'm thinking we're losing 2-1 to Newcastle. And other times I think we could beat them 3-0. And I think it's easy just to say the draw for me as well. But I'm going to do exactly that. And I think a draw would suit both teams. I think a draw suits Newcastle. It extends their run. And I think a draw sort of suits us because it keeps us level with them, and we move on to perhaps an easier run of games thereafter. Right, I'm going to check on the on everybody else's predictions. We are in the chat room. So it's called a chat room, the live chat. Anyway, so welcome to everybody in there. Daniel Baines says Newcastle 1, West Ham 2. James Gunn says we'll lose 3-1. Rondon double and a Shelvey Thunder. I'm not reading that word. Thunderbolt. I could read that word after what Charlie said earlier. No, wait.
Thunderwank, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So, no, I don't think it was a thunderwank. It's a thunder twat. There we go. We'll say it. There are worse words. If it was a different word. There's lots of text here. I'm sorry. I'm trying to scan through it. So I'm looking for numbers. 2-0 Newcastle, says Ben Davis. We need to go back to 3 centre backs. He says David G says a 1-1 draw. A late equaliser thanks to an Andy Carroll header. Well, there we go. If he comes on, of course. And I think, there we go. Liam. Hello, Liam. 3-1 West Ham. And Gary Marks says Newcastle 1, West Ham 3. And sorry, I will answer this question, but I'm going to move from the chat. And I'll put this question to Charlie as well. This is from Snazzy Azzy, which is a very good name. He says, Gonzo, what are your thoughts on our high line defensive tactics? Right, my thoughts on the high line defensive tactics are I'm sort of bought into Pellegrini's philosophy. We have got the lowest press in the Premier League. If you look at the stats, our pressing game is sort of non-existent, really. And I think he just likes the high line and he's playing us offside trap. It's a dangerous game to play, but it's a beautiful thing to behold when it works and the arms go up and they're all in a perfectly straight line. How that works when you chop and change, I don't know. That depends on how well they've done in training, but I've sort of resigned myself to the fact that we're not going to press. That's just not what we're doing. We're going to play high. We're going to make the pitch smaller, get up high up into the opposition half as we can. And it's okay. It's something. It's a style. It's a philosophy. Which is more than can be said for what was going on before. And I guess Moisey, who did a decent job for us, really, in terms of keeping us up. But he had a philosophy, but that philosophy often resulted in us having around 20% possession. And that's just not something I'm prepared to watch. I would rather see us attack every time. Your views on that, Charlie?
It's difficult because you say it is suicidal at times, especially against teams as fast and as dangerous as Manchester City, but then again, everything is suicide against them. I think the truth is that we have the right players to do it. I think we went out and we got the right centre-backs to do it. I think Balbuena is very good at interceptions, which is something you have to be incredibly good at when you're playing a high line, because balls around the back are absolutely lethal. And Diop has some of the best recovery from a centre-back position I've seen at West Ham in a long time. That dude is fast, he's big, he's a bit like Czech Chiarte, except he knows what position he should be playing. So I think we have the right players to do it. I think it is dangerous. I think it is suicidal at times, but I would much rather us play a high line, try to win the ball back further up the pitch, and try and approach the game in an attacking positive sense than us drop deep, like you say, like we did under Moyes, and sort of invite pressure on, and especially against a team like Newcastle, where they don't have as much possession as other teams. They are going to sit back at times and really just wait for us to beat. I think it's the right way to play, and I'd much prefer us to do that than be overly defensive.
Absolutely. Here, my friends. Right. Just moving on. I'll just read the last few predictions I see, and then I'm going to wave goodbye to you. I'm sure lots of you are keen to go and watch I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. I know a lot of you watch this stuff, so I'm going to get it wrapped up. Not me, of course. Why would
you look like you're dressed to go in the jungle, maybe. But, you know.
There you go, mate. There we go. Christopher Lewington, 2-1 West Ham. Max Woolman, 3-1 West Ham. I can see that. Russell, why about Anderson? Russell, what I'll do is next week we'll do a chat, we'll do a conversation, probably on the second channel. We'll do a phone in. We'll get lots of videos from people, and we'll start doing. We'll do your live questions, and we'll go through everything about the bigger picture of why Anderson's so inconsistent and stuff like that. Aside from that, if there's any, no, I think that's about it. I'm going to wrap it up now. Thank you ever so much for joining us. If you're watching this video, I mean, give it a thumbs up. West Ham are far more likely to win if you give this video a thumbs up. It's not worth the risk, is it? It's not worth chancing it. You might as well just give the video a thumbs up. If you give it a thumbs down, you get a little electric shock through your device. I just wouldn't bother. I wouldn't bother, quite frankly. Charlie, thank you for joining me, my friends.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. As G always says, subscribe if you're new around here. If you're not new around here, you're probably already subscribed. Thank you. Best of luck. Good luck if you're traveling up there. And until next time, we'll catch you Saturday after the game.